Welcome to the Automation World Get Your Questions Answered podcast. I'm David Greenfield, Editor-in-Chief at Automation World, and in this episode, I'll focus on the IT-OT convergence issue that's really become the focal point of technology decisions for manufacturers as part of industry's digital transformation. To help explain IT-OT convergence, I'll reference a case study presentation I saw delivered by Eileen Soliotis, Regional Senior Manager of Automation and Control at Entegris, a supplier of materials for the semiconductor and other high-tech industries, and Danny Haskell, President of Neomatrix, the system integrator who worked with Entegris on this IT-OT platform implementation. Now, to make sure we're all on the same page before, getting into this case study, I just want to bring some clarity to the IT-OT issue. Now, the information technology or IT department is, of course, one we're all familiar with, no matter what kind of company you work at. This is the department that manages all the computing and network resources for a company, both hardware and software. As a result, the IT department is commonly charged with the responsibility to ensure all technologies in use at the company are verified, secured, and functional. Now, the OT, or Operations Technology Department, is similar in that it's in charge of ensuring the technology it purchases and deploys is verified, secured, and functional, just like the IT department. But the OT department's responsibilities focus on the technologies used in the production environment, whether it be a discrete or batch manufacturing environment or a continuous processing operation. Now, for years, these two departments operated largely independent of each other, with the IT department handling general computing resources and front office technologies for executives, accounting, sales, and HR, while the OT department specified and managed all the tech on the plant floor. But with the advance of the Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, and industry's digital transformation in general, the IT and OT worlds have come together. Data generated on the plant floor now informs nearly every front office system with near real-time production data to give insights into the operating realities of an industrial business. With so much executive decision-making driven by the near real-time updates from the factory floor, there was bound to be something of a clash between IT and OT in terms of how decisions are made about the technologies used on the plant floor and their interconnections with corporate IT systems. And while tensions between the IT and OT groups have eased considerably over the past decade, with people from each group now typically spending time working in the other department or in centralized departments that house both IT and OT professionals, a number of issues still remain as points of contention between these departments, especially in companies with large amounts of legacy equipment still in operation. But the reality is that these two areas are inevitably merging, with IT often having oversight to ensure the interoperability of technologies chosen. So, with this background in mind, if you've been working in the industrial OT space for, say, the past 15 years or so, think back to where your operations were around 2008. Those early days of industrial technology shifts that now underlie the ongoing digital transformation across industry. And remember that in 2008, the terms Internet of Things or digital transformation were far from ubiquitous. So the concept of connecting numerous devices and systems on the plant floor to share reams of data with on-premises corporate systems or to the cloud was not yet widely understood or accepted. And as you think back, consider how the technology decisions you made then still impact your manufacturing operations. Are those systems still in place? Are they still core to your current OT decisions? And that's what brings us to the Entegris case study that I referenced earlier. I chose to focus on this case study, which I saw presented at Inductive Automation's 2024 Ignition Community Conference, because it's centered on the OT decisions made by Entegris back in 2008. and because it underscored for me how critical it is for manufacturing companies of all sizes to not just focus on resolving specific or isolated issues. Instead, it's critical for manufacturers to think about OT from a scalable platform perspective to address specific issues on one line or at one plant, while having the ability to scale beyond that line or plant to multiple lines and plants, while supporting the critical connections between IT and OT for security and strategic decision making. So in 2008, Entegris began the process of upgrading the manufacturing systems at its headquarters plant in Billerica, Massachusetts. The focus of this first step in Entegris's system modernization began with the HMI software on 3 machines. Now, at that time, Inductive Automation had not yet released its well-known ignition software. That release occurred in 2010. But the operations and IT management at Entegris were intrigued enough with Inductive Automation's approach that they decided to move forward with Inductive Automation's early versions of its software. Now, according to Danny Haskell, Entegris hadn't heard much about Inductive Automation at the time, but they were amazed by the fact that they could purchase just one license for software that could be used to control all 3 machines and have them centrally managed by IT. They were also impressed with the software's scalability potential because a key reason for Entegris's interest in upgrading its HMI systems was to have the ability to easily expand the software to multiple sites. Now, the capabilities provided by Inductive Automation's early software were so successful that Entegris upgraded to Inductive Automation's Ignition software when it was released in 2010 to drive that scalability potential of the software platform at Entegris, as well as leverage its communication and application building capabilities. Today, 2 production servers in the Billerica plant run Ignition to control more than 200 machines and some 90,000 tags. Now, Eileen Soliotis said the company now also uses Inductive Automation's Sepasoft manufacturing execution system, enterprise administration module, MQTT communications, tag servers, and server load sharing. To better grasp how the Ignition software has been able to scale with Entegris, consider that the company currently employs about 8,000 people at more than 40 locations worldwide and generated $3.5 billion in sales revenues in 2023. Now, that's quite a jump from the $550 million in revenue reported by Entegris in 2008. So, with Ignition, Entegris was able to centralize its OT systems to be managed by IT and support data integration into the company's business systems. Eileen explained that Entegris centralized the data on its IT servers for best-in-class security, data integrity, backups, and restoration. We can also share data between departments and manufacturing sites, as well as share recipes between equipment and processes, she said. Now, Danny Haskell added that Ignition also serves as industrial IoT middleware for Entegris's HMI SCADA, MES, computerized maintenance management system, quality control and analysis, ERP, and customer relationship management systems. Now, in their presentation, Danny and Eileen highlighted several key aspects of Entegris's use of Inductive Automation software in its manufacturing operations. For example, using Sepasoft's downtime analysis, Entegris was able to visualize which machines were down and when. Now, as Eileen pointed out, before using Sepasoft, the company knew that it had an 80% runtime, but didn't know which machines were down and when. We knew many of our machines were often down due to loading processes, but with the downtime analysis trend charts, we saw for the first time that all bays were down during lunch, she said. And she added that the continuous improvement manager at Entegris initially didn't believe this, but the data didn't lie. It showed him something he wasn't aware of and saved the company a lot of money. She said, "We initially thought we needed to buy a new machine to increase capacity, but this analysis showed us we didn't have to make that purchase, saving us $400,000. Also, Ignition support for Microsoft Active Directory enables Entegris to integrate it into the company's corporate security infrastructure, giving the company the ability to deploy web-based authentication applications like federated identity, multi-factor authentication, and single sign-on. Eileen noted that Ignition also allows users to prevent someone from running the machine remotely so that it can only be adjusted locally. And Ignition Recipe Management is used by Entegris to enable users to scan a catalog number and have the associated recipe automatically loaded onto the appropriate equipment to prevent operator errors. Now, looking at the company's production operations across the board, Eileen pointed out that Entegris has a lot of complicated processes. And that's why it's important for the company to be able to visually highlight what's happening from a process perspective, she said. Our goals were to connect people, equipment, and business systems in real time, increase our visibility of manufacturing operations at all levels, provide real-time correction of operations when needed, increase utilization, efficiency, and quality of our manufacturing operations, and push data to a statistical process control enterprise-level system. And we were able to do all of that across IT and OT with Ignition, she said. So, thanks for joining me for this episode of the Automation World Get Your Questions Answered podcast series. And remember to keep watching this space to stay on top of the latest news, trends, and insights on the world of industrial automation.